Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back once again to the longest running show in the world about data. It's called DM Radio. Yours truly, Eric Kavanaugh, here in year 17 of the Data Management Radio Show. We've been rocking and rolling for quite some time now, and some things change a lot, some things never change. And one thing that will never, ever change is the need for data. That's what the show is about. It's all about data management, data persistence. Obviously, a lot of attention is on AI these days. You know what AI needs to do its job? Data. Lots and lots and lots of data. And today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is really real-time data. So we've got John Kreisa from CouchBase and also Franck Levenor from Data Sleek, both experts in the data field. And I'll just say that, when push comes to shove, like I said, there are lots of different ways you can do this. So buying enterprise software is a very serious matter. You want to make sure you buy the right technologies. You want a vendor who's going to work with you and be there for you and change and adapt over time. What does that mean? It means you got a lot of choice, but you got to figure out where does one database engine excel versus another, and that's what we're going to find out today. So with that, John Kresa, bring you in from, of course, Couchbase. Tell us, in the real-time world, you guys have done some interesting stuff lately. What's the latest with Couchbase?
Thanks. Good to be with you again, Eric, and good to be with your audience. So I'm John Kreis. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at CouchBase, and we offer CouchBase Capella, which is a cloud database platform for modern applications, and modern applications that include operational data, but we've also added a columnar data store for that real-time processing and analytics of data, and it eliminates some important latencies and serves some real important needs in terms of giving enterprises the ability to deploy applications, adaptive applications, as we would call them, to their customers, which can react to real-time data, to real-time inputs, make them much more situationally aware, hyper-personalized, right? So that you can get that experience and take a wide variety of data into the database and give those experiences.
I've got another client that was doing some really interesting stuff with JSON, and they view JSON as a de facto reference architecture, which I thought was very interesting. And you can
Mhm.
use that as a personalization window into different entities or people. So in that JSON structure, you can bring in characteristics of the entity or the person or the
Yes.
group or whatever. And then that becomes key to your personalization efforts, right?
Yep. Yep, that's right. It's a metadata, if you will, is stored in amongst the very data itself, which gives you, again, more flexibility on how you create an application, which is, you know, reacting to how, which user you're and what the situation that user's in and how you're serving up that data, the experience you give them, a really hyper personalized experience. And that's key to it.
Well, and so I'll throw one last question over at you, and then we'll bring Frank into the conversation here. Personalization is going to be the key to success, it
Yep.
seems to me. And it's like anything else in this industry. We've talked about it for decades. It's not
No.
new. We've talked
Yep.
about it for a long, long time. Lots of people have been kind of jaded on the concept because it
Hmm.
never quite got there. And I think
Yeah.
it didn't get there because of the architectures, because of the compute power, because of lots of different factors. But now it's like, no, really, guys, we really, really can do this now, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is a combination of network speeds and processing power, flexibility that's in the application, and then a lot of times the analytics really did have to go to a separate system to get the insight you needed to do that personalization. Now, there's a lot of things out there, and we were talking before about AI and what that'll do. There's certainly fraud detection that use machine learning type AI applications, which are operating in real time. But those are very complex architectures. But now it's something where more applications can have that architecture and deliver that personalized experience.
Frank, you're in the space. You consult with your clients all the time. Real-time data, we were joking, it's not new. I wrote about it 22 years ago, and it was new then. It's not new now. That's been around a long time, but it really is real time now. What are your thoughts on the evolution of this industry and how close we are to delivering on long offered promises? What do you think?
Real-time analytics, real-time data, yeah, it's definitely something that has evolved enormously. I mean, especially with mobile devices, IoT devices, 5Gs. I think all those are going to accelerate the data feeds, AI, of course, right? Being able to use cameras and detect whatever it is. I was watching some video on YouTube yesterday where some cameras can detect the behavior of people on the street, right? Whether they are dancing or whether they are wearing a weapon, right, etc. So all this data it's going to be fed somewhere. Some analytics is going to be done in the background, but there's always going to be something happening. The challenge is going to be, to choose the storage, to choose the technology behind in order to process this very quickly, and whatever needs to be done also on that data, right? The challenge also about real-time data is the different data structure, right? There's structured data, unstructured data. So now we have sound, we have video, we have documents, we have text, we have just JSON, right? That gets fed with APIs. So it's really, I would say it's an interesting, because it brings a lot of challenges and makes you think, architect, find the right solution, find the right database engine, right, to do the job. Sometimes you choose the wrong, and then you have to migrate, right, which can be costly. So I've seen that a couple of times, especially for startups where they'll pick a database, they'll grow very quickly because they have a lot of data and they have success, right? And then they have to migrate because they're using the database. They are abusing, right, the database. They're running crazy queries on it, and some people are very creative. They come up with some multi-line and hundreds of lines of SQL query, and then they're surprised that their application is not working properly.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up vector databases. We should probably talk about that a little bit, at least, because of course these are the tool of choice to go alongside a large language model to host your embeddings, basically. And what these engines do is they just convert text and imagery to numeric values, and then they convert back to text or imagery on the other side. So you're always going to have a little bit of lossy nature to it because you are doing this conversion. But nonetheless, the vector databases are very, very good at comparison and contrasting, and they're really, what did someone say? They're really consensus engines. And so what they're doing is they're taking so much of this data, and you have like a dog starts here and goes like this, and all dogs go like this, or they're in this general area. Cats are maybe over here, highways are over here, and somewhere in that expanse, you can mix and match different things, but they're really consensus engines. So they're not, you know, they're doing different things than you would do for real-time data, for example. But nonetheless, they're a huge force out there. Everybody's working on their vector databases, and I look at this whole, and our first break is coming up here, but this whole new Gen AI spin has clearly captured the imagination of companies everywhere. It is not fit for every purpose in the data world. It is not fit for deterministic use cases. It is very fit for stochastic use cases, for discovery, for playing around with ideas and learning things. But they're going to become part of systems. And you have this whole concept of RAG, this retrieval augmented generation, where everyone is jumping on RAG now. It came out of Meta, from what I understand, and they realize that, because these LLMs are distilled down to probabilistic math, you're never going to get 100% perfect score on certain things. You're always going to get hallucinations, as they call them, errors, as another one of my friends in the business calls, not hallucinating. It's just an error. It made something up, right? And where it makes things up is typically on the fringe. So remember, they're consensus engines. So anything, any topic that has been widely published or written about on the interwebs on which the models were trained, it's going to do a good job of breaking that stuff down. How radiators work, how heating systems work, how HVAC works, stuff that's been heavily published about. You could get an average of all those bits and pieces out there and cobble together a very compelling and very accurate storyline. On the fringe, not so
You
much.
can imagine trying to solve a problem or, in an application where it's based on where this person is. So it's a geographic search, and they're querying for, a set of shoes that would fit them. So they know what the size is. So they're giving very deterministic size.
Right,
And maybe they also
right.
know something else about them. They're for sports, they're running shoes. So they know some things that are deterministic, about it, but they want it to be a certain color. They want it to match a pair of pants that they have, right? So it's say match this color. Well, that becomes more semantic, and so then that's where the semantic piece turns over and goes. It's not just blue, but I want to match this shade of blue exactly, and that's where you get these more combination or hybrid search pieces to create these adaptive applications. They can adapt based on, okay, the geography, within 20 miles of where I am right now, where can I find these shoes? And so it gives that level of flexibility with the hyper personalization and combines that deterministic search SQL query capability, which we're all familiar with the vector search capability that is being added to databases, everywhere.
Well, I think increasingly you're going to see these various bits and pieces form workflows, and these large language models and other foundational models are going to be a crucial part, probably on the front end, but also to a certain degree in the back end. It just depends on the use case, but you're going to be pulling them into workflows that are could become very powerful and very adaptive, as John suggests.
I think it's still going to be a couple of years, but if you combine AI with automation, right, and you build an internal RAG in the enterprise about the entire infrastructure of the company, you can have basically a virtual DBA or a virtual system admin that can monitor everything, right? And as soon as there's something wrong that happens, it knows, right? It can identify the alert, what it is. It can query another database to make sure the application is running or there's something. And then maybe it can, send a command to spin up a new server, right? And basically bring the application back online. So I think, it's going to be multiple application in analytics, definitely, because ChatGPT already does that, right? You can give it a diagram or a table, and it will analyze the data for you and summarize it for you. So that's already a given. But I think merging AI with automation in the enterprise and interacting with other systems, right? That has to be online all the time, that have to provide real-time data all the time. I think that's going to happen very soon.
Migrating off a database is very, very painful. You want to get it right the first time, get the right database, and then stick to it because it's going to be painful. How do you work with clients to identify out of, and I just looked it up, 420 different databases that are considered mature and functional, enterprise capable, according to DB Engines. It's db-engines.com. That's a lot of choice out there. I mean, it's almost an embarrassment of riches. How do you work with clients to figure out, first of all, the short list and then making that final decision? What are some thoughts or some insights you can offer the audience?
Well, I would say a database engine is almost like a car engine or a transportation engine, right? There's some that are very fast. I would compare that maybe to memory engine, right? And there's some that are not fast, but they carry a lot, right? They can handle maybe like a data warehouse, lots of data, right? Because they store the data different ways. So you need to look at first what your application needs to do. I know there's a lot of database, but there's also a very few that do things very well, right? Because they've been doing it for a long time. We were talking about Oracle, IBM, right? They've been in the business for a long time. Snowflake, well, they caught up, right? Now it's the data warehouse in the cloud. It's very hard to compete with them. And that's the only thing they focus on. Choosing the right database engine is you need to sit down, right? And sometimes, maybe you need two, maybe you need three database engines, right? And it's okay. It's okay. You don't need to run everything on the same database because first of all, it creates issues. If your database goes down, everything goes down. So it's good to also spread the risk and use the right database engine for the right purpose or what you're trying to achieve.
So there are all these different factors, and of course, your on-site team. Like, who do you have on your team to manage this stuff? Yeah, DBAs aren't quite what they used to be, but you still need people who know how to run these things, how to stand them up, how to restart them, all that stuff. So how do you counsel clients on figuring out what works best? What are the horses for which courses, basically?
Yeah, I think take an approach which is very client centric of, looking at the requirements that they have for their application. I mean, we offer a multi-purpose database which has in-memory capability and multiple functionalities there. So it's a matter of just working with them and understanding what the requirements are that they have, scalability requirements, multi-cloud requirements. For us, edge is we offer our database and platform extends to the edge, working offline and online. So it's really just digging into what kind of problem are you trying to solve, and then working with them to tweak the dials on Couchbase anyway to make sure that if it's scale out architecture or heavy query workload or heavy write workload, like whatever it might be, so that we're leaning into and making sure that they're getting the most out of the database. But like you said, we do believe that a platform with a lot, with multi-purpose capabilities can simplify the architecture. I'll give you an example, which is for us, we believe vector search capability is a feature of a multi-purpose database, not a category itself, right? Because you do get into moving data around between systems where operational databases are the source of truth in many cases.
Yeah, the environment is getting so gosh darn complex. But I'll tell you another, just to once again weave in some of this AI stuff. I was talking to a guy from a very, very big company, manufacturing company here in the US, and they have all sorts of obviously very, very intensive use cases. And they used a large language model. They asked it a question about something important, and it came back with an answer, but it only had a 59% score of confidence. And they're like, well, obviously we can't use that. And a member of his team said, well, let's ask it why it's only a 59% confidence score. And so they did. And it said, oh, because these data values didn't come through correctly, and this was wrong, and this didn't show up, et cetera, et cetera. And they're like, oh, well, now we know what to do. Right? It's kind of amazing what this AI can figure out, even in very complex environments. So it's another part of the toolkit to do troubleshooting and to do design work. What do you think about that, Frank?
Yeah, definitely. It's the knowledge it has is it's amazing, and like we said at the beginning of the show, it's just the beginning, right? When
Right.
you and keep increasing. I saw a few video of ChatGPT 4, and now they are incorporating visual sound, and they have two AI talking to each other. You can use your camera on the phone. It can look at you and see that your hair are not, like if you tell it I have an interview coming up, right? It looks at you and say, well, you should redo your hair a little bit. The guy puts a hat on. I say, well, I would not recommend wearing a hat for your interview. And the AI voice is laughing, right? So now what they are starting to add to AI is emotions, right? Like being sarcastic, right? So it's interesting because I guess they're making the AI more human, right? And it's going to be more, I guess, friendly, and people are going to be feel connected to it. So that's the danger, right? Because we're already isolated. We have iPhones. So now if we
Right.
have a body AI where we can ask any question we want anytime, right? We're going to be connected to that AI all the time. So in terms of the business world, I think that's where it's going to go, right? Typing is great, but talking is faster, and you can ask questions, and then the AI is going to respond to you. And this has been in movies, for a long time. Minority Report, right? Where they move things around in the screen, and then if you look at Marvel, Iron Man, where Tony Stark talked to Jarvis, helping him build something, right? So I think this is where we're going to go. We're going to ask question to AI, something you're not sure. Hey, can you analyze this? Can you analyze that? What if I try this? What if I try that? What do you think about this idea, right? And this is going to be in multiple disciplines, right? Marketing, sales, support, and technology. So I think it's probably going exponential because this is also going to accelerate technology, right? We were already going very fast, but now AI is just going to be, some superpower that allows us to even create faster, better, right? Better coding. I mean, the code that ChatGPT creates is just amazing. I mean, you can just copy and paste, right? And you can also understand your code, right? You can give it to it and he can
Right.
read it,
Right.
right? So it's fascinating, but also dangerous, right? We have to be careful, where it can go. I mean, if you look at the internet, social media, what happened, right? There were a lot of issues with AI. It's going to be, could be the same.
Right.
Military, right? Don't get access, don't give access to, military base to AI, for example. Right?
Right.
What if something happened? What if something talks to AI and he thinks it's a simulation, right?
Right. Right.
So I think there's a lot of um, um, controls, right, that needs to be put in place. Um, Maybe in business, right? Some people have more money, so they can build stuff that can compete against smaller business and affect them, right? So I don't know. It's a huge scope, right, that we have to look at.
Basically, every organization, I've thought for a long time and evangelized this concept, you need to have I call it like an information strategy group. Now, you do have things like centers of excellence, for example. And I was talking to a gentleman from Atlan yesterday, and they have something very cool called it's like the Office of the President, I think is what they call it, where there are a bunch of people who work for the president of the company, which is very interesting. I mean, obviously, you have direct reports like your head of marketing and your head of sales and finance and so forth, but to have this office of the president, I find very compelling uh, concept in an organizational hierarchy. And I think that now more than ever, companies need some person or group of people who are really looking at these technologies and understanding them and working with them and figuring out how they're going to patch into existing information architectures, whether that be for real-time data or stochastic purposes or whatever. But you need someone, and it's like that used to be the enterprise architect, right? Was the person who kind of understood how all the pieces come together. That where this person would fit in this group? What do you think about that idea?
It's a good question. I mean, I'll say even just from Couchbase standpoint, our CIO is the person who's leading the charge on cross use of AI within Couchbase. And I think at our customers, it does need to be somebody who's probably sits above a lot of different functions because of the holistic nature of the fact that it's going to touch customer experiences, and it's going to touch your engineering team, it's going to touch your marketing, to your point, and it really is going to holistically impact the entire organization. So perhaps, an office of the CEO is right, or maybe CIO at some orgs. Again, it depends a little bit on how they're set up a bit, I would say, but it does need to be a very, very senior. Like we all saw the emergence of chief data officers. Will
Right.
there be an emergence of chief AI officer? I'm speculating, but maybe it might be.
Well, because it impacts everything. About that. Here's my theory of what's going to happen, at least for any number of very forward-looking organizations who have the wherewithal to do this. I think that companies are going to instantiate their own small language model on-prem in their environment behind their firewall, so they own it, they run it, it's in their space. And then they're going to train it on their ERP data, their CRM data, their Salesforce data, their customer service data, all sorts of things. If they have Splunk, whatever they have, they're going to train it on their information assets. And then the executives are going to have this snazzy UI, which is basically a natural language interface. And they're going to sit there and ask questions all day long. How is our marketing doing in the West Coast? Are we on plan right now? What can we do? Who do we need to hire? Where are there gaps in the organization? And they're just going to get all kinds of information coming trained on their corporate data. Now, I've heard a couple people say, yeah, I don't think there's going to be enough data to do that. I'm not so sure about that. I think that is the future, but what do you think about that, Frank?
No, I think there's enough there. I mean, if you think about businesses, right, they use so many SaaS services, right? That data needs to be centralized somewhere,
Right.
right, in order to do analytics and reporting. So the same thing is going to happen. They're just going to extend it and plug AI in it that can understand numbers, tracking HR. That's a software, right? You have the name of the people, what they do, when they were hired, how long they've been working, what they specialize. You have their resume. You put that into a centralized database, and then you plug AI. So yeah, I think and this is it's a natural behavior, I think, right? If you look at the internet at the beginning, it was B2C, and then people started building intranet, right? Internal network, totally
Right.
isolated from the public. You have your own network inside the company. And then you had B2B. After that, you work with partners and people, you give access and they can access your data. I think AI is going to be the same thing, right? And I want to to talk also about something. I know we don't pay too much attention. I know a lot of analysts are kind of um, talking about Apple Vision Pro being too expensive. It has no future. Um, but I've always believed in Apple because they are smart people. They do a lot of research, right? I think this is just the beginning. And the model is called Vision Pro. So it's for professional, right? That's why it's expensive. It's already used in medicine, doctors using it, but this is going to become the interface, right? Because AI, it's better to interact with voice, right? Why do
Right.
you? Because it can understand your language. You
Right.
can even translate in different language. So
Right.
having Vision Pro, right, on your face, you can talk to it. Hey, I want to see this. Can you pull this report? Hey, what do you think about that? And then, those things are going to come up on your screen and say, hey, can you enlarge this? I want to see this. Oh, I don't understand that. What does that mean? Right. So it's going to be a full interaction, and you can FaceTime or interact with other people. You can say, hey, can you send this report to this person?
That's
So that
crazy.
goes back to where
Right.
we were, right? We're going to be more productive, accelerate, basically the technology, and people who are using the latest and are ready are the ones who are going to really perform well.
Yeah, I think it's going to change
Mhm.
how we work, but make us a lot more productive, I think. Real quick, what do you think?
Mhm.
Yeah, just as you said, I mean, knowledge workers are in the bullseye, and acceleration and improvement in efficiency, probably some elimination too, depending on the role. But I think it's squarely in the bullseye of these AIs. I agree there'll be private models. It's where the data is being created, does want to share, and enterprises will be more efficient. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. We'll look these gentlemen up online. Folks, John Kreisa, that's Kreisa from CouchBase, and Franck Leveneur, Leveneur of Data Sleek. Send me an email if you want to be in this show, info@dmradio.biz. We'll talk to you next time, folks. You've been listening to DM Radio.